around 33.6 billion from January to June. But when it came to 29.24 billion dollars, that is actually one of the largest economies in Africa, and being the largest economy in East Africa. It shows that we are growing at a faster rate, but agriculture in terms of the GDP contribution on the same is approximately 33%. And that shows that those who are in agriculture are actually netting close to $32 billion in a year. Not looking at this because these statistics also includes the large farms, the wheat, and the flowers. But the smallholder agricultural contribution is actually less than 10% of that money. Why? Because of low productivity and just because of lack of technology in promotion. So I want to narrow down to how do we look at opportunities in agribusiness, especially as a young person, looking at the future, looking at the opportunities that can be found in agribusiness. How can we dynamically look at ourselves and position ourselves to participate in agricultural value chain so that we are able to tap in part of these statistics that I'm presenting here. But before we do that, it is also good to understand how food in Africa, or especially in Kenya, is consumed. Yeah, 30% of food that we produce in Kenya is actually consumed directly in the farms, in cities, in the households. But it's also good to know 40% of it goes into food processing, So it is also an opportunity that young people should start thinking apart from production, where we may consumed on. How do we go into food processing as an opportunity for us to increase our income? Then also, it's also good to know that 3 to 4% actually goes into what we call restaurants and other food service markets. The food service markets includes institutions like schools, restaurants, and these were the main that were affected, especially during the COVID-19 that actually hit, and the closure of schools, the closure of institutions, and the scale of operations from food service markets led to actual shrinking of that market. But it's also good for you to understand that if you are doing your own service, it is good to know that 26% of the food that we produce go into what we call intermediate products. Intermediate products means, for example, if you are processing, if you are planting coffee, you do not go to roasting of coffee and producing the beverage, but you do what we call primary processing that goes into another industry to make the final product. So 26% of it goes into intermediary products. So it is good for you to know, to understand, where do you want to play? Yeah, where do you want to play? Those fruits, vegetables, spices, maybe chicken and all that. You want to play in the processing segment. So it's good for you to be able to be very specific, because the opportunities that actually are found here, they are being spotted by even people from outside the country, and they're looking at how do we tap into the Kenyan food markets because of these statistics that I've shown you. So if you don't look at the statistics, you will not be able to quantify the opportunity. You can look at these statistics, and that can be an appetizer for you to put strategic positioning for you to go into this. But let me look very briefly at the COVID-19 opportunities and the threats that we have found under COVID-19. We look at even pre-COVID-19, we looked at the youth who had started going into agriculture as a side hustle, leave alone the farmers, the traditional smallholder farmers who live in the rural areas, and they do agriculture not by choice, but because it's a source of livelihood and food. But mainly we had seen the middle class, we had seen the youth who had started a side hustle in agriculture, when COVID-19 came in and there was loss of jobs, we found out that for especially the middle class, and therefore they took agriculture to be a stable source of income, because people didn't stop eating when actually the pandemic hit our country and the global scene as we saw. So that's why when you see in Nairobi, most estates, you see the people have parked their vehicles along the roadsides and they are selling, they are selling cabbages, they are selling vegetables because of the opportunity. They realize that for sure any other industry is not as solid, it's not as stable as agribusiness, as agriculture. So it shows that for us to be able to take opportunity in this, we need to really move into this. Of course, the agricultural and food sector in the country had already been ravaged by the locusts and the floods and all that. So people were just healing from the locusts and the floods. Then came COVID-19 that has hit our country and actually disrupted the flow of food in the country. So that shows that even when other industries are warning and going off, we still have opportunities in agricultural production. And when I'm saying agricultural production, meaning production of crops, other opportunities includes even trading, going to the farmers, buying the food at some price, and being able to sell that food at a higher price within the markets. Being able to process foods. I have told you that post-harvest handling in Kenya is one of the worst. We lose close to, between 30 to 40% of the food which we produce. Young people go into processing of food. How can we have young people start drying vegetables? Because when we have drought, we do not have these vegetables. When we have had the disruption of the supply chain, the movements, restricted movements from people in Nairobi and even the villages, we have lots of food going into West because we have very poor technology in regards to value addition, processing of food. A lot of food too because of that. But I want to tell you that as much as COVID-19 has brought in depressed incomes due to job losses and business disruptions, it has taught us that agribusiness is an enduring industry which we can be able to look at and be able to position ourselves and look at it. Look at some of the shifts that are happening in the industry that can be able to help you to start thinking very seriously on how do I position myself, especially as a young person or as an entrepreneur, to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are found in the current food system. Because the food system which we have at the moment is not the usual food system. It has been disrupted, and the industry dynamics are that the